Thank you for hanging with us here on the Hello Neighbor show, where the conversations matter. We don't talk crap. We get into real issues and speak about the real facts and take you into conversations that matter. Welcome. Stay with us until around about 10 o'clock tonight, when we will have to bring the curtains down on this very special show. Now, there is always a story beneath the story. There is always a story beneath the story. Politics, in its public form, is theater. Thank you, Kerry. Ritualized, choreographed, and presented for consumption. Speeches are sharpened, statistics are curated, crises are framed. In politics, leaders rise and fall, not only on what they do, but on how they do, or what they do is narrated. In other words, you have to tell the story. They rise and fall also on how the stories are interpreted, and of course, how it is contested. So in Jamaica today, one such narrative stands at the center of public discourse: the leadership of Prime Minister Andrew Holness. To some Jamaicans, he is a stabilizing force, measured, modern, and effective in navigating crises, both local and global. To others, he is a symbol of deeper tensions, class divisions, elite anxieties, and the persistent struggle over who truly holds power in the society. Take a read of Darrell Vaz's article. It's fascinating, because beneath both praise and criticism lies a very deep philosophical question. What is power? And why is it so persistently contested, even when outcomes appear on the surface to be positive? And so to explore this is to step beyond partisan lines into the terrain of philosophy, into the terrain of psychology, where you find perception, identity, and some hidden motivations. They all converge. There is what you call the mask and the mirror. The mask and the mirror. And political leadership is both mask and mirror. It is mask because it conceals as much as it reveals. A leader presents a curated version of reality, decisions framed as necessary, outcomes framed as successes, failures framed as lessons. But leadership is also a mirror, because it reflects anxieties, it reflects aspirations, and it can fracture the society itself. And in Jamaica's context, the perception of Andrew Holness as, quote unquote, the best prime minister, that is what Mr. Vaz wrote. And I am sure that many of you online agree. Among some citizens, it's not merely about policy outcomes. It's about what he represents. stability in uncertainty, technocratic competence in a world that is increasingly shaped by complexity and perhaps even generational shifts in his leadership style. Yet the intensity of the opposition, it's paradoxical, you know. Why is it that our best prime minister is so intensely opposed, or what some describe as the unrelenting effort to diminish him? And it suggests that something deeper is at play. Because if leadership were judged solely on outcomes, economic recovery, crisis management, reduction in crime, then the consensus would be easier to achieve. The fact, Garthman, is that the fact that it is not tells us that politics is really about outcomes alone. It's not whether you create employment, reduce the debt, reduce crime. It's about meaning. And power is an invisible currency. Because power is not merely the ability to govern, it is the ability to define reality. In philosophy, you see, there is an argument that power operates most effectively when it is unseen. There are power dynamics in your workplace and you don't even see it. Did you know that in some workspaces, the boss hires people to watch? You know that? You know that in some workplaces, and not everybody, you see, there is an employee. Oh, there's a pretty deceptive book called The 40 Laws of Power. And it is deceptive. Power is not always seen, you know. When it shapes not just decisions, but every framework in which decisions are understood is shaped by the power dynamics. And what you see happening in Jamaica is a fascinating thing. And Jamaica is not alone in that regard, you know. The 48, yeah. Thank you, Caroline. The 48. You've read that book? The 48 Laws of Power. I have a copy right here. In many post-colonial societies, power has historically been concentrated within certain classes. Not classes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but hierarchical structures, social class. You know, Mr. Siaga, when Jamaicans started to really took note of him, came with a brilliant concept of the haves. He at that time described the Jamaican society as two classes, the haves and the have-nots. The haves were the elite, post-colonial elites. The have-nots were the descendants of slaves. But we have created other layers in the society since that time. The emergence of the middle class. Now people are, coming up with other terminologies to describe other sets in the society. Yes. The economic elites, political dynasties, the social networks that trace their influence across generations. This concentration does not always manifest overtly. In other words, it's not always seen. It is often very subtle. It's embedded in access. It's embedded in language. It's embedded in education, and it's embedded in opportunity. There was a time in Jamaica when if you're brown, you stick around. And if you're black, you turn back. It's very important that we understand the history. When a leader who emerges, who appears to disrupt, to reconfigure these patterns, whether he is doing so intentionally or unintentionally, it triggers resistance. That's a post-colonial reality, Not always because of what the leader does, but because of what the leader represents. And a potential shift in who gets to define the future. So the future of Jamaica is to be defined, and that's where the struggle is. We are defining our own future, and there are many in the society that don't want that to happen. Thus, the narrative of diminishment, the Darrell Vaze's concept of the struggle that wholeness must undergo. I just, well, this is Holy Week, and there's a reflection that we are doing at church, and it's interesting. I may share it with you about betrayal, and there are some people in the country that are betraying the Prime Minister. Well, it's a betrayal of themselves. It's a betrayal of themselves. The narrative of diminishment may not simply be about political rivalry. It may reflect a deeper tension between competing visions of the society. Because one vision seeks continuity with established structures, and another that gestures, however imperfectly, towards reordering the system. And my instincts tell me that there is a reordering of Jamaica happening, and there are some that don't want it to happen. They want to maintain the status quo and the established structures. And this is where now you get to the whole matter of elitism and the psychological threat. And you have to understand this tension. And to understand it, you have to turn to psychology, because sociology don't help you. The fact is that human beings are not neutral observers of power. We are deeply influenced by status. We are influenced by identity and perceived threat. Now, if someone comes into your workplace and they put them beside you, instantly you perceive a threat to your position. We are competitive. Yes? If a beautiful girl comes into your space, your wife may feel threatened. If a handsome man comes into your space, yes, your wife may, your wife or husband, yeah, threatened. And in psychology, you have what they call the social identity theory. And that tells us that individuals derive part of their self-concept from the group in which they belong. All right, moderator, the whole matter of self-concept, class, professionalism, political affiliation. You notice that we have formed the neighbor rights group. It's identity. And when identity feels threatened, the response is often defensive. Even if the threat is more perceived than real, you begin to defend yourself. And I think that what is happening to many people here, including members of the opposition, is the psychological threat to elitism. It's a threat to their identity, their existence. Now, it is quite perceived, you know, because the disruptor wholeness is not taking away their wealth. But there is a realigning. And it's not that they will get any poorer, but it is that many of us will get wealthier. And then we will come out of the lower class and get up into the other class. And you know what money does? You see, elitism in this context is not merely about wealth or privilege. It's about positioning. And that's where now you get the belief, which is often unspoken, that certain groups are more entitled to shape a society than others. The belief can persist even in democratic systems where formal equality coexists with informal hierarchies. The hierarchical structures in our society is very much at play. And when political leadership appears to challenge these hierarchies by shifting policy priorities, altering economic arrangements, or simply embodying a different social trajectory, it can provoke resistance. And that resistance is both conscious and unconscious. It's 11 minutes after 9 o'clock, so I can't explore these two themes completely right now, because I think what is happening is some of it is conscious and some of it is unconscious. And this resistance does not always present itself in overt opposition. It can take subtle forms. And when you hear words like arms house, counting that, you know, those are things that they need deeper psychological evaluations. Persistent criticism that exceed the scale of perceived shortcomings. For example, the Prime Minister's salary. Why on God's earth, somebody could have tell me, why is the Prime Minister's salary still an issue? You know why? It has nothing to do with the Prime Minister's salary. Nothing to do with it. Let me open your eyes. What it has to do with is that I shouldn't him I get that the salary. Nothing to do with the prime minister. Nothing done. That is, it's the unconscious, subtle way of resisting what exists. It's overt opposition, and it's very subtle. And maybe Mr. Colin doesn't even realize what he's doing, you know. The boy there, I get $27 million. He shouldn't get it. Where he come from? Where he come from, I'll get that the money there. He should not be in that position. You know what I heard a senator said on Friday? I hope I can find it and play it for you tomorrow. That Mr. Holness said he come from one room of Spanish Town. Not that it actually is the fact, you know, but that I saw him say. Narratives that question legitimacy rather than policy. The legitimacy of the prime minister is being questioned. And it is being questioned through efforts to reframe achievements as accidents or insufficient. It's not the prime minister that caused the crime to go down. It's not the prime minister that is responsible for the economic stability of the country. It's Portia. Don't credit him. These are not unique to Jamaica, you know. They are patterns, and they are observable patterns in many societies undergoing transition. But in a nation with deep historical layers of class stratification, they carry particular resonance. There is a crucible of crisis in Jamaica because the character of the nation is being revealed and the structure of the nation is also being revealed. If you recall the COVID pandemic, the economic stability, instability, the localized crises such as the financial sector disruptions, all of these have tested leadership globally, not only Jamaica, Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, the United States, Canada, Russia, China even. But if you notice, neighbor rights, that in Jamaica, these moments have been framed by some as evidence of effective governance because they have brought about decisive action, economic resilience, and institutional coordination. Did you know that one of our former finance minister, Nigel Clark, is now a deputy managing director at the IMF? Let that sink in. Yes. Yet crises also act as magnifying glasses. Yes. They act as magnifying glasses because they expose the underlying inequalities and tensions in the society. They raise uncomfortable questions. Who bears the greatest hardship? Who benefits most from recovery? And whose voices are amplified and whose are ignored? Even when a leader navigates crises successfully, like Holness has, and as much as political as you want to be, you could become red till your eye them orange. The facts are the facts. Holness has led Jamaica well through the crises. The crisis of COVID, recognized by the global community as one of the fastest recovering economy. Even when a leader navigates crises successfully, these questions do not disappear. Instead, they become part of the broader narrative shaping how leadership is judged. Thus, the coexistence of praise and criticism is not contradictory. It is indicative of a society grappling with complex realities. And one can acknowledge effective crisis management while still questioning the deeper structures within which that management occurs. Now, every political reality is mediated by narrative. Media, commentators, and the public, they play a critical role in shaping how leadership is perceived. But narratives are not neutral. Don't think that what you hear on radio is neutral. They're not neutral. They are constructed, contested, and often influenced by underlying interests. Don't think that any media house in Jamaica is neutral. None. None of them. None of us online are neutral. There's no blogger that is neutral. And as I've said to you before, when you go to the ballot box, you can't mark an X beside the head and mark one beside the bell. That's a spoiled ballot. There's no neutrality at the ballot box. You have to pick a side. The question then is simply whether there is an effort to diminish the leader. But who benefits from this narrative? The story that is being told to the Jamaican people, the narrative on media, is not a neutral narrative. Newsrooms take advice from editors and owners, and there are media houses in Jamaica. You can't get a job there if you don't carry a particular line. And it's not only in Jamaica. You think you could get a job on Fox in the United States, bigging up Biden? No. I don't want to call any media house name in Jamaica, but they're not neutral. It invites us to consider the idea of power. The power to define what is considered true, credible, and worthy of attention. And in any society, those who control narrative channels hold significant influence, often exceeding that of formal political authority. I was shocked at the response of the poll, because now people are suggesting that the Politics Plus podcast has power. And because they see us as influential, they want to shut us down. Because how can a small platform like this have an audience of 300-400 people every night? TikTok, YouTube, all over the place, and now they're doing polls? Wow. They're coming after us. And especially because the narrative is that we are supporting the Jamaica Labour Party. Now, if you put on blinders, maybe you'll be misled. But clearly, we on this platform view the policies of the Jamaica Labour Party as better for the country. And in that regard, we speak the facts that supports the government. But nobody questions. People don't make those judgments. People make those judgments of RGR. They make them of Nationwide, Power 106. They do. Once you're into news, you're not neutral. And even if neutrality is seen in the public space, I can bet you behind closed doors, people take positions. And this is why the struggle for power extends beyond elections. Because it unfolds in conversations. Every night we come up here, we have conversations. We're influencing people. You notice the last May cartoons in the Gleaner? You look at them. You notice the headlines, the social media bloggers, and even in quiet assumptions that people carry about what is possible or desired. The narrative tells a story. And that is why it is important that political parties, and especially the governing Jamaica Labour Party, construct a narrative, a story that tells the Jamaican people what is happening. But we have to unlock the mystery. And it requires moving beyond surface level analysis, which is what my moderator has been telling us. Move beyond the ordinary things that everybody is doing into the deep philosophical process of thinking. It requires asking some uncomfortable questions too. For example, are the critics of Andrew Holness' leadership rooted in any genuine concern? What are they concerned about? I heard a man talking about corruption. That this, I wouldn't call his name, is the most corrupt. And he has provided not one shred of evidence. Not one shred. Now, if this is the most corrupt administration, why hasn't the PNP come out with the scandals? Tell us what the scandals are. Foolishness. Right? Is cognitive bias. The critics of Andrew Holness, are they rooted in genuine concern? They criticize the man house. So you know if he build house. I wonder if you see house where people build. I wonder if you see house where people build a country. I was saying, I wonder if you see house where people build a country. You know, go away with no foolishness. They criticize the man house. They criticize him picnic then. They criticize his wife. They criticize everything about him. Where is the criticism and where is the corruption? If the government is corrupt, put it before the parliament. Because when the PNP was in power, the Jamaica Labour Party was able to every single week unveil let me tell you something. Anyway, let's just not even talk about that man, because that man, no, if you are saying too sensible. I think that the criticisms are coming out of deep anxieties about the shifting power dynamics in the country. Poor, you know, it is the poor people in Jamaica that are moving out of poverty to prosperity. And that caused the problem in Jamaica. You know, if you move people out of the slum and open their eyes and lift them up. Because when you lift people up, educationally, socially, and economically, you can't control them at the ballot box. The malignant influence of money becomes less. But philosophy teaches us, you see, to question assumptions. Psychology teaches us to examine motivations. And together, the questioning of assumptions and the examining of motivations, they offer us a framework for understanding the complexity of political life. But ultimately, the issue is not whether Andrew Holness is the best prime minister. That's not the issue. History will shape that. That's going to be shaped by evidence and time. The deeper issue is whether Jamaica can confront the underlying dynamics that shape its politics. The persistent class divisions, the influence of the elite networks, the subtle forms of corruption that operate beneath the surface, and the power narrative that is shaping the reality because of the media landscape. That is the ethical challenge. And it is as much a political one as it is an ethical one. And it calls for vigilance, critical thinking, and a willingness to engage with the complexity rather than retreat into the simplicity. And so beyond the eyes, there's always another layer. You are looking at your body now, all dressed up in your nice dress, or are you in your nightwear? Do you know the systems that are working in your body now? Your kidneys, your heart, your liver, your intestines. If you're a man, your body is making sperms. If you're a woman, it's preparing you, depending on your age, for reproduction. Your brain. Do you know the systems that are working in you now? You never see them, but they are working. You feel your heart beating. Did you know that your kidney is working now too? Yeah. Beyond the eyes, there is always another layer. Power does not shout, it whispers. Don't just take what you see, my neighbor writes. There's some other deep things at play. Don't think that when the opposition leader come out and say something, he just say it. All orchestrated, all planned. There's a motive. It moves, not only in the parliament, but in perceptions. When Nikisha Burchell comes out and say, it's rumored that I am dating the prime minister. Don't think that she just said that. That could be just part of a strategy. Maybe she was told, say that. That could be part of the plan to diminish the man. So now people are looking at him as a, it moves, not only in parliament, but in perceptions. You want to create perception. It lives in spaces between what is said and what is believed. And in Jamaica, as in all societies, the struggle for power is not only about who leads, but about who defines what leadership means. And to see this struggle requires more than observation. It requires reflection. It requires courage. Because to uncover the hidden truth is to confront not only the systems around us, but the assumptions within us. At 28 minutes to 10 o'clock, perhaps the most provocative idea is this. The greatest challenge facing Jamaica is understanding the forces that shape how leaders are chosen. And if philosophy teaches us anything, it is that truth is really simple. And if psychology teaches us anything, it is that perception is rarely neutral. And between these two lines, the space where politics truly lives is right here, so. And in that space is a quite complex and often unseen the future of Jamaica has been written. And you are part of it. So am I. Stay tuned.